Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jay Kohn. Janelle is off tonight. The Catholic Church of Montana completes another part of its settlement agreement with sexual abuse victims. 27 priests and other clergy members accused of sexual abuse decades ago in Montana now have their names released to the public. Those names made public in federal bankruptcy court documents that were filed by the Diocese of Great Falls Billings. The diocese agreed to a $20 million settlement with 86 victims this past April. Despite that action, the victims will get to decide if they'll accept the settlement. The decision coming at an August 14th hearing set for Butte Bankruptcy Court. The diocese filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection back in March 2017. The first claims of sexual abuse were filed in 2011. They date back to the 1950s through the 1970s. As part of the settlement, the diocese agreed to post on its website a list of all known past and present clergy members who have been identified by victims. The list would remain on the diocese website for at least 10 years. The diocese would also develop a phone number and email address designed to handle anonymous complaints of abuse. All victims of sexual abuse would also be released from confidentiality agreements. You can find a complete list of the accused priests by visiting this story. We have it for you on our website right now at ktvq.com. A new study paints a bright picture for future jobs in Colstrip, jobs associated with the cleanup of groundwater pollution at the Colstrip power plants. Now, one thing that separates this study from others is that it's a joint effort between the Northern Plains Resource Council and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. A unique relationship between the conservation group and coal workers perhaps is news in itself, but more importantly, this study brings to light the current decisions now pending in Helena as to what type of cleanup the state of Montana will approve for Colstrip's leaking coal ash ponds. The more extensive the cleanup, the more jobs are involved. Now, some of the case studies cited in this report show that doing a thorough cleanup is a major job creator, in some cases employing between 50 to 90% of the plant's operational workforce. The Colstrip Ash Pond Complex is one of the largest in the U.S. 32 ponds cover more than 800 acres. They contain tons of coal ash contaminated with pollutants such as arsenic, chromium, radium, and lead. The ponds are leaking, though, at an alarming rate, up to 367 gallons a minute, the equivalent of 200 million gallons a year. Now, once Colstrip Units 1 and 2 are shut down, plant operator and co-owner Talon Energy is proposing a cap-in-place remedy where the ponds would be covered with the coal ash left inside. This study, though, points out that historically a cap-in-place approach results in fewer jobs and an increase in long-term pollution. Ted Stymack with IBEW's Local 1638 says his union sees the reclamation work as an opportunity to keep skilled workers employed in the Colstrip community instead of being laid off and forced to leave. Becky Mitchell, the chairman of the Northern Plains Resource Council, says a good cleanup plan that hires the local workforce is an important component of what we hope is Colstrip's bright and resilient future. The study also points out that a thorough cleanup protects local property values. Now, the Montana Department of Environmental Quality is currently reviewing Talon's cleanup proposal and will be approving a specific cleanup plan within the year. We did reach out today to Talon Energy for its response to the study, but as yet have not heard back. In Seattle, a federal judge has blocked the online distribution of blueprints for 3D guns. Some of those blueprints are for plastic guns that would go unseen by a metal detector. The latest tonight from Angelica Alvarez.
These online blueprints for 3D printed AR-15 assault-style rifles have been downloaded more than 2,500 times in the last 3 days.
I don't believe that if I allow you to download an AR-15, the full plans of an AR-15, I don't believe that I provided you anything other than the general knowledge of what an AR-15 is. I am no different from a publisher of information.
5 years ago, Cody Wilson built the world's first fully fireable plastic handgun, and his Texas-based nonprofit recently settled a lawsuit with the federal government, allowing him to publish his blueprints, many for guns completely untraceable and undetectable. But 8 states and the District of Columbia are now suing to block Wilson, and late Tuesday, a federal judge in Seattle made the publishing of any file online detailing how to make a 3D gun illegal.
The idea here is to limit the harm, and by placing this temporary restraining order in place, that will make a dramatic difference for public safety.
It was the Trump administration's State Department that made the settlement, but President Trump appears to be having second thoughts. Tuesday, he tweeted, "I am looking into 3D plastic guns being sold to the public. Doesn't seem to make much sense."
If it fires once too many. Because if it's an undetectable weapon, it can get into an airport.
Wilson has funded his legal fight by selling thousands of milling machines capable of making unmarked homemade metal AR-15s and handguns. He says his goal is to publish blueprints until every gun design on Earth is available to anyone online. Angelica Alvarez, CBS News, Washington.
Elsewhere tonight, as fires in California continue to rage, families are desperately searching for loved ones. Firefighters frantically searching for relief. The Carr Fire, now considered the 7th most destructive fire in California history. At least 17 wildfires are now burning in the state, even blocking the paths of those who are trying to flee the danger. Just today, the Livingston Fire and Rescue Department here in Montana announced it, in fact, is sending one of its engines to help out in the California firefight. Skies over western Montana getting congested this week, but not from local fires. The smoky haze being blown in from those blazes burning in California and Oregon. But really, it's not as bad as it might look. Air quality specialists tell us they don't anticipate any major changes to air quality. That's because the smoke is relatively high up in the atmosphere. The air quality is measured using standards set by the Environmental Protection Agency. Some of the most common pollutants include carbon monoxide, lead, and that fine particulate matter. That's one of the primary reasons for poor air quality due to wildfires. On to our weather scene tonight. Our skies aren't as hazy as they are in western Montana. Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire here with details on what the air quality situation is right now, Bob.
Yeah, I got a picture from Missoula. We took it at 8 o'clock. Let me show you what that looks like. Yeah, that just looks nasty. That smoky stuff out there. You can hardly see the mountains off in the distance. You know, you can see up pretty close, but boy, off in the distance, that's where the smoke really comes into play. Let me show you, though. There's Missoula. Now, as we move on, you'll see our U.S. West fire and smoke map. It does show that we have large plumes of fire and smoke across the western United States. Yesterday, they had not made their way into Montana. Now they're starting to do that. Not only that, but up in southern Canada, we've got fires up there, and smoke from there is drifting across the high line into the southeastern corner of the state. And so here's what it looks like for Montana's air quality. Today at 3 o'clock, Missoula and Lolo, they have bumped up to moderate, and to places like Lewistown, Billings, and other places in the east where they were still good. Same thing in the southwest. Now, here's the way it was at 9 o'clock. The southwest has been bumped up to good. I should say up to moderate, and Missoula still at moderate, but at least Lolo Pass now is starting to return back to good. So things are trying to improve a little bit tonight, but we're expecting more smoke to waft in by tomorrow because we got a whole bunch of moisture and also some winds moving in from the southwest tomorrow. We'll have more on that coming up in a few more minutes. Jay?
All right, thank you, Bob. Outside of Cody, Wyoming, the Heart Mountain Interpretive Center sits on land that was once used as a relocation center to intern Americans of Japanese descent during World War II. This past weekend on Saturday, the center held its 7th annual pilgrimage. Q2's Zoe Zandora takes us there.
My name is 32198F. Some of you may not be familiar with that. The 32198 is the family designation that we had as internees.
75 years ago, on February 19, 1942, President Franklin Roosevelt signed an executive order 9066, instructing all persons of Japanese ancestry be placed in facilities. The unprepared Japanese American men, women, and children were taken from their homes by the U.S. government and incarcerated to designated military zones, one of the zones being Heart Mountain in Cody, Wyoming.
I used to be here. I was a prisoner here at Heart Mountain from 1942 to 45, 3 years.
Our first experience was with the FBI. They came to our home and they confiscated anything that they felt was necessary.
My grandfather died of colon cancer in a ward right across the other side, and I looked at his medical records, and he starved to death. It was awful. They weren't feeding him.
The 7th annual pilgrimage of Heart Mountain internees come together 75 years later to remember and educate in an effort to stop history from repeating itself.
And it is important that we continue this kind of a pilgrimage to make sure that what happened to 120,000 people never ever occurs again.
In August of 2011, the Heart Mountain Wyoming Foundation opened its doors to the Heart Mountain Interpretive Center, a museum dedicated to passing on the Heart Mountain story to future generations.
We feel it's important to honor our ancestors and especially honor those that were actually incarcerated here as children, because now those children are, in their 80s and 90s. And they're still here, they're still alive, and they're still with us. And we're trying to really embody for their children and grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren the importance of preserving this site and telling this story for generations to come.
Through photographs, artifacts, and interactive exhibits, guests to the center experience life at Heart Mountain through the eyes of those Japanese and Japanese Americans that were confined at the camp during World War II.
My wife and I came here and said, somebody, someday, ought to do something so that this place can teach the many lessons and tell the many stories that this country needs to know in order to, in fact, learn from, improve from, become a better place.
Raymond Uno was 12 years old when he and his family were picked up and taken to Heart Mountain and was an internee from 1942 to 1945.
In America, we have to learn about our mistakes, and the evacuation and the incarceration of the Japanese was considered one of the worst wartime mistakes. And the lesson that all of us here are trying to convey is that don't ever let this happen again.
Sam Mihara, a Heart Mountain internee, says he finds many young people are not being taught about what happened.
Many of them don't realize that an entire group of a single race, mostly American citizens, were removed from homes in California, Oregon, and Washington and forced to come to a prison like they created here. So my job is simply to try to teach people what really happened.
It's a very unusual thing to lock up over 120,000 individuals of Japanese descent, 2/3 of which were American citizens, including my parents. Why is it important to remember this? Well, number one, history has the ability to repeat itself. And if you memorialize a travesty that the government has acknowledged as being wrong, and they did apologize to the Japanese American community, I think that it's important that that message not be lost.
Thank you for returning and keeping the memories, assuring it will not happen again. And yet the seeds of that are being sown, and it is up to all of us here this day to bear the responsibility to see that it never takes root. God bless you all. Thank you.
In Cody, Wyoming, Zoe Zandora, MTN News.
And Zoe says, looking forward, one of the primary goals at the Interpretive Center is to enlarge it, perhaps to stabilize and restore all the buildings there, as they did with the chimney, which remains an iconic symbol of Heart Mountain. Still to come on tonight's 10 o'clock news, has been churning out power in Montana for 100 years. Tonight, we celebrate the Holter Dam Centennial. And in sports, Scott shows us how Laurel's Morgan O'Neill shrugged off a slow start in the final round to claim her first Montana State Am.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Kohn and Janelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.